My ex-wife looked me dead in the eye and said, "You're going to pay for this child whether you want to or not." The court always sides with the mother. I told her she was insane. 3 days later, I got the court summons. I'm Ryan, 38, civil engineer living in Columbus, Ohio. My ex-wife Claire and I divorced 3 years ago after 6 years of marriage. The divorce was clean because we never had kids. No shared property, no alimony. Claire always said she wasn't ready to be a mother. And honestly, that was one of our biggest fights. I wanted children. She didn't. We went our separate ways. The marriage ended in February 2022. We'd been living in a rental townhouse near Clintonville, splitting everything down the middle until the lease ended that March. After the divorce, I moved to a one-bedroom apartment in German Village, got promoted to senior engineer at my firm, and started rebuilding. I dated a little, nothing serious. I focused on work, picked up running again, tried to move forward. I thought that chapter was closed. I thought I'd never hear from Claire again. Then 2 weeks ago, on a Tuesday afternoon, a process server showed up at my apartment. I was working from home on a video call with a client about a bridge project in Dayton when someone knocked. I answered the door, and the guy handed me an envelope. Court documents, child support case, Claire Miller versus Ryan Miller, Franklin County Family Court. Case number Dr. 2025-8847. She's claiming I'm the biological father of her 14-month-old son, born in October 2023, and that I abandoned her during the pregnancy. The petition asks for immediate child support payments of $1,200 per month, backdated to the child's birth. That's over $16,000 she wants retroactively, plus ongoing payments. I read it 3 times before it sank in. 14 months old. I did the math immediately. That would mean conception happened around late December 2022 or early January 2023. We divorced in February 2022. We haven't had any contact since the divorce was finalized that April. No calls, no texts, no accidental run-ins at the grocery store, nothing. The timeline doesn't just seem wrong, it's mathematically impossible. I was dating someone else by then. A woman named Sarah I'd met through work. It only lasted a few months, but the point is I'd moved on completely. I called my lawyer, Evan Brooks, the same attorney who handled my divorce. He's mid-40s, handles family law exclusively out of an office in Grandview Heights. I explained the situation over the phone, reading him the exact wording from the petition. He went quiet for about 10 seconds. "Ryan, you need to come in today, right now if you can." I drove to his office, a 20-minute drive that felt like an hour. Evan had the documents spread across his desk when I walked in. He didn't waste time with pleasantries. "Here's the situation," he said. "In Ohio, if you don't dispute paternity within a specific window after being served, the court can legally assign you as the father by default. It doesn't matter if you're not biologically related. Once that administrative default happens, you're on the hook for child support, possibly backdated support, and you have almost no recourse to challenge it later." I felt my stomach drop, but I wasn't even with her when this kid was conceived. We were divorced. How is that legally possible? Because the system is designed to assume honesty, Evan said. The courts operate on the principle that mothers are telling the truth when they name the father. If you don't contest it within the legal time frame, the court interprets that as acceptance. It's meant to prevent deadbeat dads from dodging responsibility, but it also means someone like Claire can file a fraudulent claim and hope you either don't respond or don't understand how the system works. "She's banking on that," I asked. "She's counting on it," he said. "This isn't desperation. This is calculated." That's when it hit me. This wasn't about Claire being desperate or delusional. This was a legal trap. She was banking on me either ignoring the summons or not understanding how the system works. She was trying to lock me into 18 years of payments for a child that couldn't possibly be mine. "What do we do?" I asked. "We respond immediately. We dispute paternity in writing. We request a court-ordered DNA test, and we make sure the judge understands you had zero contact with Claire during the conception window." He started typing on his laptop. "I'll file the response tomorrow morning, but Ryan, you need to prepare yourself. This is going to get ugly. If Claire's willing to lie about this, she's willing to lie about a lot more." I left his office feeling like I'd been punched in the chest. I don't understand how someone can invent an entire child support case and expect the system to just go along with it. But apparently they can. And apparently people do. Update 1. The first hearing was last Thursday morning at the Franklin County Family Court downtown. I got there early with Evan. We went through security, took the elevator to the third floor, and sat in the hallway outside courtroom 3C. That's when I saw Claire for the first time in 3 years. She looked different. Not just older, but deliberately different. She was wearing a modest navy dress that looked like it came from a department store clearance rack, minimal makeup, hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She was carrying a baby bag over one shoulder, one of those oversized canvas totes with cartoon animals on it, and had this tired, resigned expression on her face that I'd never seen on her before. Claire was always put together, always polished. This version of her looked worn down, exhausted, vulnerable. If I didn't know better, if I hadn't been married to her for 6 years, I would have thought she was exactly what she was pretending to be. A struggling single mother just trying to get support for her child. It was a performance, and it was convincing. Her attorney was a younger guy, maybe early 30s, clean-cut in a gray suit that looked fresh off the rack from Men's Warehouse. He didn't look at me once while we sat in the hallway. They sat on the opposite side, about 20 feet away. Claire glanced over a few times but didn't say anything. She didn't have the baby with her, which I found strange. Wouldn't bringing the baby make her case more sympathetic, but maybe that was strategic too. Maybe she didn't want me seeing the kid. When we got called into the courtroom, the judge was an older woman, Judge Patricia Lawson. She's been on the family court bench for over 20 years, according to Evan, known for being thorough and no nonsense. She reviewed the case file in silence for what felt like 5 minutes, looked at both of us over her reading glasses, and asked Claire's attorney to present their position first. He stood up and launched into this whole narrative. He said that Claire and I had maintained a romantic relationship, even after the divorce was finalized, that we'd been intimate during late 2022 and early 2023, that the pregnancy had been unplanned, but that I'd initially agreed to support the child. Then, according to him, once the baby was actually born, I'd disappeared. Stopped answering calls, blocked Claire on social media, refused to acknowledge my son. He painted me as a deadbeat dad running from responsibility, someone who was fine with the fun part but abandoned ship when it got real. It was all lies, every single word. But he delivered it with this earnest, sympathetic tone that made it sound plausible. He even had a timeline printed out, highlighting the alleged conception window and showing that it overlapped with periods when I was supposedly seeing Claire. I wanted to stand up and call him a liar right there, but Evan put his hand on my arm under the table. Stay calm. Let him finish. Don't react emotionally. When it was Evan's turn, he was surgical. He stood up, adjusted his tie, and spoke in this calm, matter-of-fact voice that cut through all the emotional manipulation Claire's attorney had tried to create. Your Honor, my client had zero contact with Ms. Miller after the divorce was finalized in April 2022. No phone calls, no text messages, no emails, no in-person meetings. We have phone records, social media evidence, and witness testimony prepared to verify this complete lack of contact. The timeline presented by opposing counsel is not just inaccurate, it's impossible. We are formally disputing the paternity claim and requesting a court-ordered DNA test to establish biological parentage definitively. He sat down, short, direct, factual, no theatrics. Claire's attorney objected, but it was half-hearted. He said something about the emotional toll on his client, but he didn't push hard. Judge Lawson approved the DNA test without much debate and scheduled another hearing for 6 weeks out to review the results. I thought that was it. Test comes back, shows I'm not the father, case dismissed. But as we were leaving the courtroom, Claire walked past me in the hallway. She was close enough that I could smell her perfume. The same one she used to wear during our marriage. She looked straight ahead but said, just loud enough for me to hear, "You're going to regret fighting this. Not, I hope you do the right thing. Not, I just want what's best for my son." She said I'd regret fighting it, like she had something planned, like the DNA test didn't matter. Evan and I went to a coffee shop 2 blocks from the courthouse. I told him what Claire said. He stirred his coffee and stared out the window for a minute. "She's too confident," he said. "If this was just about confusion or desperation, she'd be falling apart right now. But she's not. She's acting like she's already won." He pulled out his phone and started making notes. "We need to dig deeper. I'm going to look into her financials, her relationships after the divorce, anything that might explain this confidence." "You think there's more to this?" I asked. "I think people don't threaten you unless they believe they have leverage," he said. We need to figure out what that leverage is before the next hearing, so now I'm waiting. The DNA test is scheduled for next week. I'll get the results about 10 days after that, but I can't shake the feeling that Claire knows something I don't. And that scares me more than the court summons did. Update 2. The DNA test came back. 0% probability. I am not the father. I've never felt relief like that in my life. I called Evan as soon as I got the email from the lab. Good, he said. Bring the results to my office this afternoon. We'll file for immediate dismissal. I thought it was over, I really did, but the hearing yesterday proved me completely wrong. We went back to the same courtroom, Judge Lawson, same setup. Evan submitted the DNA results to the court. The judge reviewed them, looked at Claire, and asked if she had any response. Claire didn't cry, she didn't break down, she didn't apologize. She looked the judge in the eye and said, "I think there was an error with the test. I'd like to request a review of the testing process." I stared at her. Evan stared at her. Even her own attorney looked confused. Judge Lawson leaned forward. "Ms. Miller, this is a certified laboratory. The results are definitive. Do you have any evidence to suggest an error occurred?" "I just know that Ryan is the father," Claire said calmly. "The test must be wrong." The judge wasn't having it. She asked Claire's attorney if he had any evidence to support a retest. He fumbled through some papers and said he'd need time to consult with his client. Judge Lawson gave him 2 weeks to file a motion if he wanted to challenge the results, but her tone made it clear she thought this was nonsense. As we were leaving, Evan pulled me aside. "She's stalling. She knows the test is accurate, but she's buying time." "Why?" That's when Evan's digging over the past 6 weeks started to pay off. He'd been quietly looking into Claire's financial records, pulling what he could access legally through discovery requests, checking her social media, tracking her digital footprint. And he found something significant. For the past 14 months, Claire had been receiving monthly payments of exactly $650 from someone named Jason Reed. Venmo transactions, every single one. The payment notes were all variations of the same thing. For the baby, child support; for our son, November payment. The payments were consistent as clockwork, deposited between the 3rd and 5th of every month. Then suddenly, about 8 weeks ago, they stopped completely, just cut off. No final payment, no explanation in the notes, just silence. 2 weeks after Jason's payments stopped, Claire filed the paternity case against me. Evan tracked down Jason Reed through public records. He owns a small auto repair shop on the east side of Columbus, off Hamilton Road, called Reed's Automotive. Divorced about 4 years ago, early 40s. No kids from his marriage. Evan called him cold, explained who he was and what case he was working on, and asked if Jason would be willing to talk. Jason didn't hesitate. He said yes immediately. We met him at a diner near his shop. One of those classic places with red vinyl booths and laminated menus. Jason showed up in work clothes, jeans, and a flannel shirt with his shop's logo. He's a big guy, probably 62, works with his hands. He sat down across from us, ordered coffee, and didn't waste time on small talk. "Yeah, I dated Claire," he said, stirring sugar into his coffee. "Met her about 6 months after her divorce. Spring of 2022. She seemed great at first. Fun, charming, easy to talk to. We started seeing each other pretty regularly. Then she got pregnant that fall, told me I was the father. I believed her. Why wouldn't I? We were exclusive, or at least I thought we were. I started sending her money every month, $650 like clockwork. I wanted to be involved to meet the kid, but she always had excuses. The baby was sick, she was tired, it wasn't a good time." "What changed?" Evan asked. "I pushed for a DNA test," Jason said. "I wanted my name on the birth certificate, wanted to make it official. She kept delaying. Finally, I told her I wasn't sending another dollar until we did the test." He shook his head. "That's when she stopped answering my calls, blocked me on everything. I tried to follow up, but she disappeared. I figured she'd found some other guy to squeeze." Evan and I looked at each other. Claire wasn't confused about who the father was. She was rotating targets. When one man demanded proof, she moved on to the next. Evan asked Jason if he'd be willing to testify. Jason said absolutely. He was done being played. Evan filed a motion with the court. He requested that the judge investigate Claire's prior paternity claims, subpoena Jason Reed as a witness, and order a second DNA test to confirm Jason's paternity. Judge Lawson approved everything. The hearing is set for next month. Claire's attorney tried to get it delayed, but the judge wasn't interested. She said this case had already taken enough of the court's time. I found out later that Claire called Jason after the hearing. One of his employees told him she showed up at his shop, crying, trying to guilt him into dropping his testimony. Jason told her to leave or he'd call the police. She left. I don't know who the father of that baby is, but I know it's not me and I know it's not Jason. And I know Claire is running out of people to blame. Final update. It's been 6 weeks since I posted the last update, and this whole nightmare is finally over. I need to walk you through what happened at the final hearing because it was somehow worse and better than I expected. We got to the courthouse early, same as before. Judge Lawson's courtroom. Claire walked in with her attorney and she looked composed, calm, like she had a plan. That made me nervous. The hearing started, and before Evan could even present Jason Reed's testimony, Claire's attorney stood up and made an announcement. He said Claire was pregnant again and requested the court take that into consideration when evaluating her financial need. Judge Lawson stared at him for a long moment. Then she said, "Counselor, your client's current or future pregnancies are irrelevant to this paternity case. Sit down." He sat down. Claire's face didn't change, but I saw her hands tighten on the edge of the table. Evan called Jason Reed to testify. Jason walked the court through everything he told us at the diner. The payments, the excuses, the refusal to allow a DNA test, Claire cutting him off the moment he asked for proof. The judge listened carefully, took notes, and asked Jason directly if he was willing to submit to a court-ordered DNA test. Jason said yes, no hesitation. The judge ordered the second DNA test on the spot. We all went to a lab 2 blocks from the courthouse that same afternoon. Results came back in 5 days. I got the call from Evan on a Tuesday morning. Jason's not the father either, he said. 0%. The final hearing was yesterday. Judge Lawson had both DNA results in front of her. She looked at Claire and asked if she had anything to say. Claire started to say the lab made an error again, but Judge Lawson cut her off. She said, "Ms. Miller, you have now falsely accused 2 different men of being the father of your child. You have filed legal claims without evidence, wasted this court's time and resources, and attempted to manipulate the child's support system. This is not confusion, this is fraud." Claire tried to argue, but her voice was shaking. She said the lab must have mixed up the samples. Judge Lawson told her to stop talking. The judge ruled that Claire had to reimburse me for all legal fees. That came out to just over $11,000. Evan had been meticulous with his billing records, and the judge approved every line item. She also forwarded the case file to the district attorney's office for potential fraud charges. Jason stood up and said he was filing a civil suit to recover the money he'd paid Claire over the past year. That's another $7,800 she's going to owe. The judge ended the hearing by saying, "Ms. Miller, you came into this court believing the system would protect dishonesty. You were wrong. This case is dismissed with prejudice." I left the courthouse with Evan. Jason left separately. He didn't look at Claire, didn't say a word to her. She stayed in the courtroom after everyone else had gone. I glanced back before we walked out. She was sitting alone at the defendant's table, staring straight ahead. No tears, no performance, just the slow realization that she'd run out of moves. Evan told me later that Claire's attorney withdrew from the case the next day. He'd filed the paperwork to sever their professional relationship. I don't blame him. I don't know who the father of Claire's son actually is. I don't know if she knows. Part of me wonders if she ever intended to find out or if the truth was never the point. The point was finding someone who would pay without asking questions. I'm relieved. I'm angry. I'm exhausted. But mostly, I'm grateful that Evan pushed me to fight this instead of just hoping it would go away. Because it wouldn't have, Claire would have kept going until she found someone who didn't push back. If there's anything I learned from this, it's that the system isn't designed to catch liars. It's designed to assume honesty. And when someone is willing to weaponize that assumption, you have to be ready to fight back with facts, documentation, and a lawyer who won't let them get away with it. I'm moving on. Claire's not my problem anymore. But I hope whoever that kid's real father is, he's better off than the men Claire tried to trap.